Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Now if you're looking for an ITX motherboard for a new PC build, or you've been checking out the available budget offerings, then chances are you've run into one of these. Motherboards that feature the processor already included. Not just included like already assembled CPU bundle, but ball grid array CPUs that are actually soldered onto the motherboard and therefore non-removable. This isn't anything new when it comes to a lot of laptops, and a few new low power desktop systems feature these. As for office environments, they are silent and will keep electricity bills down. Like this Acer Aspire here, my old office desktop. I bought it because it was cheap and it uses the Celeron J1900 quad-core CPU, which is non-removable. You can also buy the J1900 as part of other motherboards for about £60 or dollars, but with a lot of these boards lacking a PCI Express slot and any upgrade path due to the soldered CPU, is it worth it? Well, for office purposes and home use, yes. I used mine for a year or so before getting into PC gaming and it did just fine. I paid about £130 for this Acer brand new, about €150 or $160, and they're now discontinued. If you wanted to build a new ITX system featuring one of these boards yourself, you could probably do so for about the same price, and you'd have a small system capable of basic usage. There are a few other CPU options available as well that are soldered to different boards, probably all offering similar performance at this price range. So we've established that these CPUs are good enough for their intended purpose, but what about gaming? I mean, we've got to test gaming, right? So with a Cinebench multi-core score of 149 and a Geekbench multi-result of 3170, things may not be looking too promising, but remember, we're taking this thing way outside its comfort zone, and along with our 4GB of DDR3L RAM and onboard HD graphics, it was time to get gaming. First up, it's CSGO. We'll start off with the presumably easier to run titles. Here at 720p, the J1900 hit 45 frames per second. Turning the resolution up, or the settings for that matter, saw the game struggle a little more, and with CSGO being a fast-paced title, it's always nice to aim for as many frames as possible. Our minimum frame rate did drop to 18 though, throughout our match, which was a little worrying, and it led to my death on a few occasions. The soldered on CPU is off to a, well, start. Team Fortress 2 now, again with 720p and the low settings. The performance is lacking here with around 31 frames per second on average, which, although would be playable in some other games, can prove to be a disadvantage online, especially with the frame drops and occasional hiccup. 14 was the minimum over half an hour of gameplay, and you guys know I'm hardly the best gamer in the world, so this loss in frames did prove quite a problem, but remember this CPU is by no means designed for this. So let's try Overwatch. Surprisingly, and although this isn't really a playable result either, the game achieved 25 frames per second on average with 720p and everything at minimum, except the resolution scaling, which we kept at 100%. The minimum frame rate wasn't significantly less either at 20, and this ran a lot better than I was expecting. Finally, can it run Crysis? Well, yes it can, at low settings at 1024 by 768 resolution, and it does so at around 34 FPS. Turning things up and the game crashed even when we tried running it at 720p, which shouldn't have been an issue. Regardless, with 26 being the minimum frame rate, it didn't stray too far from the line of playable. So what about adding a discrete GPU? Well, if you have a system with an embedded processor as well as a PCIe slot, adding something like a GTX 750 for example may make a nice difference, but the bottleneck would be a pretty big one. Unfortunately, like most, this Acer desktop doesn't have the appropriate slot to test. So, what's the point? Well, if you want a desktop PC that is low on power, quiet and small, then a system that features a motherboard and embedded processor may just be what you're after. As for a custom build, the same applies, but only if you are a very basic user. If you want to game or do anything remotely intensive, you'll find that even the more expensive soldered CPUs don't offer much more power, and it's essentially like opting for a laptop within a PC case, but for less money. So guys, there we have it. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I I thought the whole concept of embedded CPUs was quite interesting. So as always, I hope you've enjoyed this. If you did, leave a like. If you didn't, leave a dislike. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and as always, I hope to see you all in the next one.